Hey, Steve. Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, Michael. How are you?
Okay. Can't complain.
No beach in the background. I'm disappointed.
Yeah, it gets old after a while. Yeah, I don't have the beach going for me today. Oh, cool out here today. I don't know. What was the temperature this morning? Yeah, it was 64 degrees here, which is kind of weird.
Well, be thankful. It's 36 here.
No, but usually this time of the year down here, it's not in the 60s. I mean, that's kind of strange, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yep.
Oh, boy.
Morning, gentlemen.
Hey, David, how are you?
Whoa. How's it going, Steve?
Good.
Michael.
Hey, Dave.
How's the weather down there, Michael?
We were just talking about that. I mean, what the temperature here is about 65 degrees, which is a little bit unseasonably cool, but I'm not complaining about it. It's just
Yeah.
nice.
As a guy spent
65 is,
Well, you're gonna get an unreceptive audience if you do.
yeah. I mean, anybody will take 65 all day, every day, but usually it's warmer. But anyway, I'm sure it's probably it won't be lasting very long. I'm sure tomorrow will be 85, 90 again.
Sure.
Probably a little front came through, that's all. Hey, George, how are you?
Yeah. Very, very good. Sorry, answering a quick boom. Great. I'm great, actually.
Go ahead, George. Fine.
No, go ahead, David, please.
I was just gonna say I was wondering if anybody's in the path of the upcoming solar eclipse, because we finally, first time in my life, we're gonna have totality. So
Yeah, it's coming right over you. And ironically, it's going right over where we used to live, where I'll actually be this weekend. So yeah.
So that'd be very interesting to they got all the glass, the selling, the hawking the glasses, and
We're thinking about renting a like an RV van, one of those Mercedes vans, and just driving 8 hours west. Because why not? Kent, how are you, man?
Morning.
Yeah. Anybody else planning on seeing it?
I
It's
didn't
it's
even
only about 20 minutes away from where we live, so
Cool.
it's going through the central part of Ohio. So yeah,
Nice. Well, what other than eclipses, what's on everyone's mind?
I have a question for you, George.
Fire away.
I already gave you the other one. I guess you guys are still working on that one. But when I've gone through these, I go through this Clarity One exercise, the questions about
Yeah.
recurring revenues. One of the questions is, can you predict recurring revenues, like a significant portion of recurring revenues, either through contracts or by other means?
Yes.
When you talk about recurring revenues, are you talking more about subscription type revenues that are on autopilot? Or could someone say, well, listen, I'm a CPA and I have a CPA firm. So every year we send out engagement letters and people sign them. And based on those signed engagement letters, I can predict my revenues. So are you referring to subscription revenue consistency or repetitiveness, or is it just any means of predicting future revenues, even though the time horizon may be for only a year or so?
Well, what's interesting is if we think about let's take a subscription where you have a term agreement. You're like Value Builder. Value Builder locks you into a 1-year contract at X dollars a month, right? Now, if I'm looking at those revenues, I have a couple of questions. One, okay, so what's your retention rate? But I know that all things, and what's your bad subscription rate? But I only have a couple of questions, and I know how much money's going to come in over time. If we look at a CPA firm, guys, what questions would we ask? We would ask, again, what's your retention rate?
Okay.
How many new customers, how many do you lose? What's your net promoter score? I'll just shorthand it. how likely are those how many of those engagement letters typically come back, and how confident are you that you can keep that pace up? My favorite story about this, Mike, when we talk about or other means, one of your colleagues had a household name chef in New York as a client, and that chef had 6 restaurants. And I quipped in training, he was excited to use the software, the previous software with this guy. And I just quipped without really thinking, well, I guess recurring revenue is going to be a challenge. And he said, actually, no, it is really, really cool. Now, this goes back the better part of a decade. So technology has changed this. But what they had done is they had figured out how to parse their credit card receipts, right? They could tell which credit cards were coming back again and again and again. And they had figured out how to get, and if you've been to one of the restaurants, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But they had figured out how to get the people's birthdays, anniversaries, etc., and to form a one-on-one relationship with them. And then they would send them a bottle of wine. In New York City, what's the most valuable thing you can have when you go to a restaurant? Valet parking, right? It's half the cost of the meal. So valet parking vouchers, etc. And he said, actually, we can predict on a given weekend how many of our regulars, not the specific people, but how many regulars will be in our restaurants, and we move them around. They'd figured out not an algorithm, they just sifted through it, and they could say, oh yeah, we know that X% of our regulars are going to eat somewhere in our system this weekend or during this week. And I was blown away. I'm like, God, people are just smart as heck. So there's a long-winded answer to your question. Anyone else? But now that I've hogged the microphone again, anyone else want to comment?
I'll give you another example, an oddball example. So I don't know, a handful of years ago, I sold a garage door company, and I will say, obviously, they don't have recurring contracts, but they had 20 some years of their sticker on the backside of garage doors. So they knew every year they were going to get X% of those stickers, calling them up.
That's awesome. And Ed Wonke always tells the story. He was one of the founding senior execs with Chemlon. And Chemlon used to, they'd win a customer. The sales guy would go out, win a customer. And then the following spring, they'd come and they'd hang a tag on your door that said, call us if you don't want us to come. And the phone never rang. And so they knew that every year they could just go to the same addresses and they'd send the bills and the bills would get paid. And they knew, even though there they just had, that's kind of the lowest. All they were doing is hanging the door tag. But people wanted this service to come. And if you think about it, I mean, just take my plow guy. I don't have one anymore. Happy to report. But my plow guy would just show up the first time it snows every year, right? And there's Nick out in the driveway. I'm in the kitchen, 4:30, watching another man with tens of thousands of dollars worth of truck do the hard work. But yeah, so there's I think that answered your question, Mike.
Yes, thank you.
Cool, awesome.
Yeah, I run into that question a lot, and I think it gets a lot of good discussion. And I mean, obviously the best is always, contractual relationship where it's like, it's pretty cast iron, and probably not that many businesses have that, but I think, if you get the business owners with the mindset of thinking about, recurring revenue, I think that's really important, because, the reality is that if you got a business where it's all just a bunch of one and dones, like that's a tough business, right? Because eventually you can get sidelined just, by somebody coming into the market to kind of take you out, or, maybe you get distracted when you're running the business and something happens to you. But but if you have that engine where, people just keep re-signing up, then that's powerful. So I think just getting the owners with the right mindset is really important. And there's one guy I'm working with now who's, he's about 2 to 3 years away, but this is like, this is like an area that we've really kind of focused in on with him, and he knows the importance of it. So I think it's if nothing else, if you can kind of emphasize, well, yeah, this is why it's so important. And when you think about it, it's pretty intuitive why that would be important. So
yeah, It is. Kent, you were about to ask?
Yeah,
mean-
well, I was just gonna, couple comments. Number one, this presents a very nice value growth opportunity for you as an advisor.
Yeah.
You know, I can give you an example. When I was running a cybersecurity company, basically identity and access out of Amsterdam a few years back. And what we were able to do, and also with my buddy who ran the same type of company in Dallas, we were able to basically take the IT services that we were providing for large enterprises and move that and change the nature of that income from project-based to recurring based. And so and what ultimately happened. And so if you can identify that with your client and be able to help them move into a, let's call it a subscription type of revenue, the value creation is, it can be, well, I can just tell you that what I saw and even what my buddy experienced in Dallas, he sold his company to a very large IT concern, and he was well into the double digits of EBITDA on valuation. So from the standpoint of just looking at what you can provide for the client, that's one thing I would just wanted to bring up, is look for those opportunities where you can create that. Number two would be on not a recurring basis, but to be able to show a reoccurring basis. And the difference there is, let's say, and this really came up with it's come up with contractors that I've worked with. It's also come up with engineering companies that I've worked with, where their work is very much project based. So they're pretty much going out, hunting the project, killing it, doing the work, getting paid, and moving on to the next project. And a lot of these companies are, sell for lower multiples because of that fact. However, if you can show reoccurring, in other words, let's say you've got an engineering company that consistently does work with one architectural firm, let's say. Let's just say they're multifamily, and they're doing all kinds of engineering work in the multifamily space, and they've got 2 or 3 architects who's basically, probably sending them, let's just say, at least 50% of the business anyway. That I call reoccurring.
Yeah.
And you can definitely get an increase of value for the reoccurring, even though it's not like what I described in a subscription base. So I just wanted to basically, bring those 2 comments up.
That's a great point, Ken.
But one of the problems with that, right, George, is that the reoccurring work may be in a concentrated few, and then you have a concentration issue.
Well, and I'm immediately thinking of, turning that a little bit sideways and saying, how about us with COIs, and how does our ability, so there are a bunch of questions that are in my head, and I'd love to kick these around. One, what's the difference, what's the score rate, the win the engagement rate between putting a contract in front of a client that says, hey, it's $10,000 for 6 months, and they immediately hear $60,000, or saying, hey, listen, it's $10,000 a month, and as long as I'm delivering value, you can hire me. I have a 60-day termination. That's all I ask. There's no term contract. I just need, if you're going to stop working with me, we need 60 days to wind it down. And honestly, I'm dedicating my time to you, so I'm going to need to go and allocate that time somewhere else. And what's the difference there? And then interestingly, how does that align interests? The contract versus the annual contract versus I have to sing for my supper every month. I have to deliver value when I'm done delivering value. And that's kind of the EOS model, right? And if I'm not delivering value, you can show me the door. How does recurring and reoccurring revenues apply in our, to our advisory businesses.
Well, the other thing, if you're trying to back owner independence, that then would lead to how dependent is that business on the owner's relationship with that key supplier,
Yeah.
correct?
Oh,
So then,
yeah.
then it kind of goes into saying, okay, well, what are we doing about redundancy? What are we doing about working yourself out of the day-to-day grind? What are we doing about, developing your leadership team? So that kind of parlays right into a great conversation around, human capital development. And so that's, if you want to say that we have this reoccurring revenue stream, what evidence do we have that it's not tied to you and your relationship with that entity?
And the symbiotic relationship, it's interesting on reoccurring revenue. So those, I'm just going to use manufacturing. It's personal experience. There were some of my subs, right, or who provided assemblies to us that we did. We were 100% of their business, right? They got every penny they made came in the form of an invoice to us and a check to them. And those relationships are really interesting. And if you think about it from the supplier's perspective, and they're really, I didn't have a contract with them, right? But there was a lot of trust there, and
Right.
both ways, right? And again, I guess an alignment of interest, but if I'm thinking about it from their perspective, it's really interesting. I can, picking up on your point, Joe, if we think about how our clients, like those men became good, close, dear, personal friends. Was it a business relationship? Sure. When you're on the phone every day, when you're solving problems they were like, anyhow, there's a lot to play out there as well. I know I just shifted the lens a little away from recurring and reoccurring, but these are all layers to the relationship, right? Pecuniary being one of them. Very cool. But having high recurring revenues and contracts to prove it is kind of the gold standard.
Yeah. And then I guess it speaks to, I guess from a buyer's perspective, it speaks to their concern about the safety of future revenues, right? Because that's I think one of their number one concerns is when they're looking at your revenues and they're saying, well, how safe is that revenue stream going forward?
Predictable profits and cash flow, dare I say?
Yeah. I mean, it's, and then, and then there's other aspects to it too. I mean, do you have a scalable sales system, and training and stuff like that. So it's all about the buyer being able to feel comfortable about future revenues, right? I mean, that's what this all centers around.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting when we talk about future revenues, one of the things that comes to mind is price. And especially when we've gone through an inflation spike, or maybe we're still in it. But when we go through an inflation spike, which we definitely just did, that puts a pressure on margins, of course. And if I'm looking at a business today as a buyer, I might be asking, when was the last time you raised your prices? When were the last 2 times you raised your prices? How did you do it? And how was that received? How did it turn out? And how much did you raise them by? How many clients did you lose? Or sometimes, unbelievably, raising your price increases the number of customers because you've been value pricing a pretty premium product. Anyway.
It's also, we used to, I've used that as a strategy when I've done acquisitions, from the standpoint of, and a lot of companies do this. Private equity does it all the time because they understand that most small businesses underprice themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like 80 to 90% of them their prices are too low. So you can actually go in and actually look and say, okay, yeah, we understand, based upon our knowledge that we can increase prices 15-20%. And we also understand the likelihood of losing a client would be X, And we also know that we could lose 20% based upon a gross margin number. We could lose 20% and still put the same dollar on the bottom line.
And
that
increase
creates-
efficiency, yeah.
Creates efficiency, creates capacity. If you're a manufacturer, it does a lot for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And just a comment on the revenue line, that's what we're selling at the end of the day. I mean, you're selling the probability that revenue is going to happen. Obviously, this cost structure is in place. I mean, if you can improve the cost structure, great. But the number one thing is security of that future revenue. So from our standpoint, when I look at a business, I know that, looking at that top line and the quality of that top line has everything to do with the value of that business at the end of the day.
Well, boom, you just jumped into, a relatively recent phenomenon, which is the quality of earnings review, right? And how important how prevalent those have become, where a decade ago, they were really they were
larger companies, but now
larger companies buy the buyer in a deal, and now sellers in smaller deals are commissioning.
Right. I can tell you that because I have a couple of friends here, M&A attorneys and even investment bankers, and they're saying that the quality of earnings report now is even more important and asked for more so than audits or reviewed financial statements.
Absolutely. And the thing about it is if you're working on exit, we'll actually do a quality of earnings prior to going to market.
Right. Sell side.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you got to know what the buyer's going to do there. So you better be ready for it.
You need a light to stand up. Be like, yeah, you can take your QOR. This is ours.
Well, the sell side QOV is important, yeah, because it's gonna highlight if you got problems ahead of time. Like when you go to market, you want to at least either have dealt with some of those red flags that have come up, or you got some sort of explanation about, okay, this happened, but this is how we've handled it. So like you've got a good story as opposed to being blindsided in due diligence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This goes to strategic capacity, guys. I know it goes to strategic capacity, goes straight to the quality of the business and is very closely related to the quality of earnings. Didn't mean to kill the conversation there. Heck yes. Yeah. And it's all about educating the client, right? There's no bigger shock than when you're like, well, listen, wait a second. They come in with their perception, their assumption about where they are. And then something like a Q of E will realign. Well, one of the great values that we deliver is to realign, to educate the client about what's coming. It's like, hey, listen, I know you think you can train for 6 weeks and run a marathon, but that's not the name of the game. No, you can't, with all due respect.
If you've got a decent client that you're working with on, looking to exit or looking to sell the business, the best thing you can do is actually do all that due diligence prior to going to market. And if there is any bloody noses out there that we can't contain, so to speak, you tell the client, and depending upon your involvement in it, you get that out right at the very beginning. Say, look, here's everything, and here's what you're going to find, and you take the wind out of the sail. There is no repricing once we get past the LOI. I mean, it does a whole lot for you.
Yeah, it's interesting. This goes straight to a conversation, Kent. Your comment right there goes straight to a long conversation I had with Barry here present yesterday morning, and a topic on which I've taught with Ed. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning.
for a long time, which is, I'm going to get a prop. There we go. And one of our newest, one of you guys, our newest growth driver is a really sharp. He's a CEXP, a really sharp insurance professional, and this is a biz equity report, right? So you get a discounted cash flow valuation. You get a biz equity, which is a DCF valuation or calculation of value, to be precise. It's not an opinion, right? But what do you have? And what you have is not worth much, because at the deal table, you're going to get your butt handed to you. And what we need to do, Kent, to your exact point, is say, hey, yeah, I know you got an unsolicited offer for $12 million, and that's great. Now let's talk about what an unsolicited offer is, what it is not, and why you might want to have a better grasp or understanding, better education on the relationship between your revenues and the value of your business. And that's where we shine, right? Barry, by the way, I deleted that whole DCF thing. You're welcome. I mean, thank you.
I'm not surprised.
Okay, Mike, have a great day.
Yeah.
So I had built a DCF model I was doing a bunch of things, but one of them was to verify how to study how a DCF compares to a biz equity style calculation of value compares to a clarity style calculation of value. And do we all, where are we? And what DCS has a marketability discount, but I don't think it bites hard enough, because the market data doesn't support the marketability discount. And the market data, the delta is that this is, a DCF is done in an office, right? Based on educated, very educated women and men calculating a value for the business. But but you sit down with an investment banker and actually look at the Q of E, then that DCF, we're going to deflate the heck out of it because of real risks in the business.
Well, George, it goes to the difference between value and price.
Yeah, exactly. You beat me to the punch. Yes, it goes to the difference between value and price. And that's something that I'm actually in that module. That is one of the, those bullets. It's a bullet. Here's, we're talking here about price, potential price, right? And how you can be better set up to get a top price for the business. Absolutely.
From a transaction, I've done quite a few transactions.
Mm-hmm.
And from a transaction perspective, and looking at the valuation that comes out, typically I use it for two things. Number one, to get the client reasonable about what that potential business is worth.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of them are not. And I can, you can back that up with a little bit of market data as well. And the second thing I use it for is within the conversations of where are they a seller? At what price, Barry, are they a seller? And that
Emotionally, like what price would they need? Yeah, totally.
That's exactly right. And then I can really look and say, okay, number one, is this a client for me? May not be. They might be. May not be a client. Number two, if it is, okay, when are they a seller? And so I can basically, and I'll document that. And then I'm looking at market and saying, okay, what's the probability that we're going to take this business to market and get well above, the floor.
Mm-hmm.
That's my tendency. Because, you look at these, it's just like, and the opposite is very true as well. And let me maybe speak to that side of the coin. Probably 3-4 years ago, three, yeah. I got a call from an advisor to a CPA who had a company who had entered in, at least in a verbal, had taken their business to market themselves. And they talked with three potential buyers, and this is just a good example that shows what we should be thinking about. And of those three buyers, they all came back with an offer. And again, they basically did this all themselves. Came back with an offer around about $7 million for the business. And the CPA was just like going, man, I think, he said, I'd really love for you to just get in there and have a conversation. So I did that. And, I looked at everything and I told the CEO, I was like, look, I really think this business, you've underpriced the business and you've got a verbal agreement here with a company that, and I said, you're really underselling the business, and that's my opinion. He said, well, anyway, I got hired. And the first thing I did was basically have to tell the buyer that there was no deal. And so we stepped back, repackaged the business. When I say repackaged the business, didn't do a whole lot, because the company said that they wanted to continue to work with these 3 or 4 buyers to just see what I could get the price to. Anyway, bottom line is we sold the business for $14 million. So it just goes to show you that, there's, to use us, number one, to get them reasonable on really what the business is worth. But on the other side of things is that, they may be selling a business. And in this case, it was definitely something that everybody on this call understands, and George just talked about it, was you're selling the future. And what that company was doing is they were selling the past. They were selling and that there was a huge future in this company. And we basically got 14 million without an earning. And so that was just an example of what you need to be aware of.
Yeah.
Well, it can go the other way around. I've had situations where a client is buying a business and they're oftentimes they're overpaying for the business. Now, usually the experience is, Barry, I just bought this business, okay, and the deal's done. But if our clients can bring us in on the front end and have us take a look at the business as part of the due diligence team, oftentimes they will avoid having overpaid for that business.
Yeah.
And that brings up another instance where I was actually with an engineering firm, and they had gone down a road just like you have, and I killed the deal. And I say I killed the deal. I told the CEO, I said, there's no way you should go through this transaction. And it was with a private equity firm. I mean, they were literally screaming at me over the phone, literally screaming at me over the phone. Yeah. And we turned around and we created a nice transaction with another company after that. But just got to be on your toes with all of that.
Well, yeah. Totally agree. Yeah, price. And a lot of these, well, get the right price. Kind of begs the question. So Barry and Kent, and I know Steve, you're an investment banker. So when you're there, what factors, how do you determine if someone's overpaying? Like in those situations, what made you say you're overpaying or you're getting underpaid?
honestly, the first, I've been doing this a long time. The first is my gut. I'll just be honest with you.
Yep.
You know, first is my gut when I'm looking at a company that has tremendous growth on the top line and they're very profitable. And I'm looking at a multiple that is based upon, you know, it's based upon some historical value. And I mean, you just know, right? Really, it takes you 30 seconds. Yeah, you're undervalued. And then obviously you go prove it out. But that's one. The other side is just get as much market data and as much conversations with people as you can. and you know, like I tell my clients, I'm like, look, and just like I told the one that we sold it for 14 million, I was like, look, you know, we don't know what market is, and going into this thing, you don't know what somebody's going to pay for it. I said, you don't know until you put it out there at the end of the day. So let's put it out there. And, you know, I told him, I said, look, you may be leaving money on the table if we stick with these 4 buyers. That's what I told them. And they said, we understand that, but that's what we want to do. I said, okay, you know, I mean, that's their decision, but you gotta let them know that, because you never know what somebody's going to pay.
Yeah.
George, I've seen on the opposite side, when you're buying a business, you know, what's the investment thesis, and is it really going to create value to the company? Because there's been studies done where buying expanding by creating value by buying a business doesn't work. So you got to have I believe you have to have the right investment thesis and make sure that you are creating value, because there's a lot of moving parts with deal structure, with debt, with, you know, a lot of different things that can destroy value.
And we don't need to go down this rabbit hole, but integration, right? So you buy another company, now what, right? And because we may have gotten the right price and closed the deal, but the prospect for integration is terrible. And I have been through that as the company I always bring out as my favorite whipping boy. You know, we bought 2 businesses, in company number 3, we bought 2 businesses. We bought them because we crushed them in the market. Then we paid more than they were worth, but because they're more than they were worth on paper, but we wanted to have an in-market call center, and we wanted their client list. Great. But then the rest of the integration was a dog's breakfast, and we did it twice. And with some of us screaming bloody murder. Jerry Maguire was my nickname in that business. And others thinking that, you know, they were making, you know, they looked like they were going to make more money because they get a stripe of total revenues at the end of the year, whatever. Integration is a giant, a really significant failing point, a very, very common failing point. One of the things you just said, Barry, why consolidation in the CPA world and the consolidation of CPA advisory businesses or CPA businesses. Why is that happening? Who's funding it? And do any of us believe, who would like to make an argument that we end up with a better CPA industry through consolidation?
Well, let me give you my perspective on that. And what I have seen is that the reason why firms are combining is because of a number of reasons. One, and it's the big reason, baby boomers are reaching the end of their careers. And the way in which a lot of the transactions that I've seen have been where they're securitizing their retirement payouts. Because I believe that's very seldom that cash is paid for these firms. When we were buying firms, we were never paying cash. So, but that's how they're, you know, why that's taking place. Really, 2 is the shortage of people that could actually do the work. So they're acquiring talent through these acquisitions or through these combinations. And that's a big, those two, I believe, are the major reasons why it's happened. And it's going to continue for a long time. If you look at the firms that are combining, a lot of the small, mid-sized firms that are anywhere from 30 to 50 people, those are the firms that are being squeezed the most, because they're the firms that have the difficulty in attracting quality talent that can pay out, take over the firm and pay out that next generation.
It's interesting because, what you just described, when we think about, let's think about the market at large. Let's think about a manufacturing company. A friend of mine owns a manufacturing company, 20 million a year. They're buying a small $5 million manufacturer. Why are they doing that? To differentiate their product, to expand their reach and relevance within their market, right? They're going to expand their product set within their market and actually add new markets that geographically wouldn't have been. And it's not footprint. This just goes to technology. It doesn't matter. CPA firms, it's interesting, Barry, because we have a couple of things. We have CPA firms saying, I'm lonely, let's get married. Great. We have private equity eating Eisner Amper, et cetera. Great. But what we don't have, and we have investment banks purchasing CPA firms like, hey, listen, we can just bring this tax advisory in-house, and we're going to buy a boutique firm and get, provide better, enhance our relevance and impact with our clients. That makes sense from a traditional market perspective. But I don't know. I don't have the data. I don't see news that management consulting firm A and CPA firm B are merging, are doing a merger. And I can think of a few reasons off the top of my head, but that's given market forces. What do you guys think? Is that what we would expect to see, or is that not what we'd expect to see? And is it that CPAs, the things that has happened inside the CPA industry preclude that type of the management consulting and accounting? I can see a fractional CFO firm, by the way, and a management consulting firm combining, right, Kent? I mean, that's I just described you in a nutshell.
I was going to say, I had that in 1999.
Yeah.
Well, there was a period of time, and I forget what years it was, that CPA firms were combining into non-CPA firms. Take the American Express acquisition. There were 3 or 4 firms in the Chicago area that were acquired by American Express, and I believe that those transactions over a period of years failed.
Interesting.
So it's been a while since I haven't been involved in it for a while. So I am aware that private equity is purchasing CPA firms. And my only question is why, other than the fact that are they paying cash? I mean, I don't know how they're buying.
Yeah, well, I think if I remember correctly, I read something where the private equity is buying. They're not buying the attest portion of the CPA firm. They're buying the tax and consulting portion of the CPA firm. The attest stands on its own. And what has happened, at least from over the last probably 20 years, is you had more younger progressive CPAs that wanted to really get into and done the consulting, and you had these consulting arms of CPA firms start to materialize. And you typically see it in the larger firms initially, where and what happens and what has happened in the past, however, I think it's going to change in the future, and I think it's already changing, is that the traditional CPA firm partner did not have the patience or tolerance for the way that management consulting worked within the practice.
That you
And-
just got to the heart of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you could throw investment banking or in there as well. You could throw IT consulting in there as well. Because the traditional CPA partner basically was production based. It's, hey, we get a percentage of revenue. I get my bonuses off of this. You record your time, you bill your time, and that is not how investment bankers work. And that's not how even management consulting is doing success fee works. It's not how these, and so there was this, so what happened was it drove a wedge in the leadership of both firms, and that caused a separation. And so they would take the management consulting piece, they would spin it out. And you saw that happen.
At the big four, right?
Yeah. You saw that happen time and time and time and again. Now what's happening is exactly what you described, where you have even private equity or other buyers coming in to capture. And if you think about from an investment banking standpoint, if I'm a large enough investment bank and I'm a hunter, why can't I go out and acquire a CPA firm, at least the tax and consulting part of that CPA firm that has recurring revenue? And what does that do to my business? What does that do to the valuation? What does that do to the breadth of people and expertise that I have in the company? So it makes a lot of sense for them to do that. It makes a ton of sense for them to do that. But
Well,
I think
I don't
you've got to
believe
have
that-
some, you've got to have some sized in order to make that sense. Make it
I don't
sense.
believe that that private equity can own the attest function.
Correct. They
period.
can.
So, and the tax and the consulting are the more profitable areas of the firm. And even, to what you said about how the partners are compensated, there's is that wall. I mean, they don't really refer business within the firm to other areas of the firm for whatever
Oh,
reason.
horrible at it.
And,
They're horrible.
and
That
not even, there was a firm that
Yeah.
I mentioned in this area that had an investment banking arm, and I met with the head of that particular part of the firm, and I said, "You must get a lot of business from other areas of the firm." He said, "No, I get zero."
nothing. That's been our experience. Yeah.
And I was astonished. And even within my own firm, I headed up our business consulting practice.
Yeah.
It was all me. Okay.
Yeah.
It's all on my own to get business in the door.
Yeah.
That's there's a philosophy, and it was just Mr. Hood at Daniel Hood at Accounting Today just wrote a fantastic article on this point. So you just hit it, Barry. And let's think about this from let's layer, if we can, let's layer the 3 dimensions of growth on top of a CPA firm. A partner in a CPA firm is a partner, right? They're a partner. Problem number 1. 2, it is my client. And I've seen, I will not mention the firm by name, banging on the table with his fist, the managing partner. This is exactly what we're going to do. He's really excited. It's exactly what we're going to do. I want this done. I want this done immediately. Bam, bam, bam. You know what happened? Nothing. I walked out of that meeting on cloud 9. Woohoo! Here we go. We got a giant integration going, or nothing. Because, and this is why when we take a manufacturing business, when we say Steve is our customer and we're going to delight Steve, everyone bands together to delight Steve. In a CPA firm, no one is banding together to delight Steve. You got the partner and their seniors, and that's it. And we have one thing that we do when we want Steve in and we want Steve out. Let's just crank the widget handle, and we want to keep Steve happy. We want Steve to be our customer. We're going to take Steve to play golf, but that's very different than we're going to band together to delight Steve. And we're going to figure out what else we do that's going to make Steve happy. That's going to make Steve come back. That's going to make Steve better. That's going to make Steve tell his friends that we are the cat's meow, that we invented water and then we walked on it. Yeah.
Well, to
my
part
animated point.
part of what you're saying, George, I'm working with a family business, and the name of the business is the last name of the owner.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the questions that I'm asking and the business has been around for the family's been around for a long time. The business has not. This is probably would be the third generation within the business if it was a continuum, but it's really the second generation in this particular business. That's why I use the term families in business. So I asked the question, do the customers identify with the owner or with the business? And as we deal with family businesses, I believe that's an important question because if you're talking about succession or talking about sale, that becomes a real big deal of getting that continuation. I know it's a different topic, but I thought it fed from what you just said.
No, you're spot on. And it's yeah. All
Well,
simply around the same topic.
Another 5 years and all those old thinking guys will be out of the way anyway. So, you're going to have your attest functions, which will be CPA firms owned by CPAs, and then everything else is going to be under another company. And what's also, I mean, when you think about the attest function, because of the scarcity in qualified talent, they're going to be able to get the prices that they need to get and that they want to get, just because the supply and demand.
Well, and it's one of the few industries where we all have the proverbial gun to our heads to use their services, right? You better file your taxes, and if you want to pay the minimum required by law, you'd better have a professional at your side. I mean, when I was in law school, I could carry the entire, this is 1990 to 1993. I could carry the entire tax revenue code was in 2 phone books, basically, right? Paper that thin, but 2 phone books. It's now, you couldn't do it with 2 hand trucks. So, good bloody luck. Good bloody luck, right? With all the crazy shenanigans that our crazy tax code.
Yeah. Well, that's honestly, I mean, that's why most law firms and CPA firms, when they merge, they do it with no cash, because they're really not buying each other. They're getting together because of the economies of scale. And they're basically saying, hey, I can make more money if I join, this larger firm. That's it at the end of the day. And then they've got their buyout provision, which is typically over a period of time. And that's how they work, because they see it. And I would also say that they're right with regards to, this is my client.
Yep. They're factually correct.
They are absolutely right, because I am not going to work with an attorney either I think's incompetent or I don't enjoy, or I can't develop a relationship. Same thing with a CPA. Yep. It is their client. Same thing with a financial advisor. Same thing with everybody on this call. People work with people who they like. Now, if I'm providing, if I'm constructing swimming pools, that's completely different, or if I'm making a widget, that's completely different. And that's always been the hard piece with regards to professional services and valuation, and actually really who owns the client. Bottom line is, if you're in professional services, you own the client. I don't care what you say.
Well, what's interesting, Kent, is that's factual, that's absolutely correct. But if I look at it from a shareholder's perspective, is the fact that you own the client, it's the behavior, it's the non-group behavior. And by that, I mean that, and we all see it, you're in a CPA firm. Are you referring your client across to get management consulting services? Are you referring your client to get, the firms that do really well? I love Armanino out on the West Coast for this reason, that do a great job of saying, hey, we need to diversify. We need to have additional points of revenue contact with this client. And traditional CPA firms are doing a piss poor job in that regard. They talk about it.
80% of them are the same thing in the law firm.
Same law firm. Oh yeah, same law firm. Sure.
Same law firm, same law firm. I am helping a manufacturing in renewable energy space, basically in a startup function. And one of the things that we're involved in is actually presenting a turnkey package for a project that will be that these it's in solar, that these solar products would go into, and the sale of the investment tax credit coming out of those projects. And everything from you get into some sophisticated tax equity flips, you get into sale leasebacks, you get into a lot of different things. But so we were working with a very large law firm, and we thought we had the experts in the fields that they, but at the end of the day, what we found out was the real expert was in another office, 200 miles away. And we went through literally 6 months of work with this law firm before we found that guy. And we're like, well, we've been working with this guy over here. And they're like, no, yeah, he's the expert. You should have been working with him for the last 6 months. And it was horrible, absolutely horrible for the client.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's going to change though, because, it'll bring it full circle. How long, if I'm running a private equity firm, how long am I going to put up with? Well, I don't care. That's my client, and we're not, and I don't know how Frank does with, growth advisory, and he's not messing with my client. And I don't even, we all know exactly what private equity is going to say.
No.
And it's a conversation that could end with, we're going to send a box of your goods home. Thank you for your service. We're releasing you to the industry. All right, guys, 10:27. That was a great conversation. Can we do a quick wrap up? Because this is a terrific conversation. Joe, I'm going to start with you. You've been the most silent today. And so what's your key takeaway, my man?
Beauty in these, excuse me, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, guys. And if we can understand that a customer understands what's sticky, how do you make a sticky relationship? That's what we're trying to create when we're trying to evidence that you're going to have that ongoing relationship that will produce revenue beyond you. So think about it, sticky. How do you make it more tacty relationship, the better? I think that fundamentally is something people can grasp and understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Joe. How about you, Barry?
The whole concept of value and price intrigues me. Because there's just so many moving parts and variables. And it's not just about the numbers. It's about the story behind the numbers. And that's where the art comes in.
Absolutely.
And that's where I believe that we're really valuable to our clients, is helping them understand and helping them develop that story.
Absolutely. Thank you. Kent?
I'll take the last section. We get business because of who we are. And it has unfortunately proven that it is difficult for us to leverage our business because of that. So it behooves us, if you want to maximize your time or your dollar for your time, is to really look at what we do really, really well and bring people like Joe and Barry and George to the table to do the business that they do really, really well, and stop being afraid.
Yeah. Stop being afraid. Amen, man. Amen. Very
Hey,
fun
See my
conversation.
cat back there?
I can.
My
I
cat
can.
is, yeah.
Sleeping in the paper
I
tray.
just noticed him back there. Yeah.
I've kept cats my whole life. This is one of the few times in my life when I don't actually have a couple of them. Not living in a city, it's probably a good idea.
Mhm.
All right, guys, listen, thank you very much. Fun conversation. We're at the bottom of the hour. I know you guys are all busy, as am I. So thanks.
Yep.
You have a great
Thank you,
week, and
Joe.
we'll see you next
Thanks, Barry.
Tuesday.
See you, Joe.
Thanks, guys. All right, be well.